I guess everyone knows by now that you're Gary Wright.
Right.
Where do you know Gary Wright and his group from?
From England. He used to be in a band called Spooky Tooth. I met him during my album, All Things Must Pass.
Yeah.
He came, played piano on the whole album. So I returned the favor tonight.
Very nice. How many in the audience knew that George was in the group up there? How many didn't know?
I'm not in the group. Just
No, I meant that you were up. I meant that did they recognize you there or not in that subtle way we had you camouflaged, bending in with the background like that. You know, I haven't. You're only the second member of your former organization that I've ever met. I know John.
You didn't meet the other 8.
No. Were there that many?
Yeah,
no,
hundreds.
I only. I know
you
John.
Ever hear of the 18th Beatle?
There were rumors that the Beatles were not always the same person. In fact, there was once a rumor that there wasn't even the real 4 of you who came over here on one trip, that they just sent 4
We just
guys.
sent 4 dummies out there.
That and, what was the other one? Oh, that you actually were all bald and that had no hair, and that you would, that was so you could go out in the street and not be recognized.
It's all truth.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, well, then they aren't rumors.
Let's take a little march through time with bird's eye frozen orange.
Plus, well, he's right. You weren't supposed to see that. Let's take a little march through time.
It, really,
Now we're here. Is this confusing you a little bit?
It is,
setup?
all these cameras. Don't know which one I'm supposed to be looking at.
Must be exciting for you to be next to a famous person.
It is. It's very exciting. I don't do this every night, you know.
No, I do, unfortunately. No, you were probably wondering what we were looking at. George saw the lights go on over the cameras, which give me the lead into the commercial. Actually, I don't think the audience at home cares what we're looking at. I mean, they're more interested in what we think.
Well, I want to know what's looking at me, really. You know, I'd like to check it out, there it is.
But you don't have to, they always say you don't have to worry about what camera's on, that they'll find you.
Yes.
That's how I...
Big Brother is watching you.
Whatever. Yoko sat in that very chair.
Well, I bet many people have sat in this.
Well, a lot of people have sat in it, but I was just thinking...
saw the show. It was very nice.
Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was one thing they forgot to plug, so I thought I'd plug it for them, and that's their new Christmas record. We wish you Merry Christmas, war is over. Get yours now. Thank you.
Is there such a record?
Yes, he made it after he was on the show, so he didn't get a chance to talk about it.
Is there a slight undercurrent of hostility between you and other members
really,
of your... No, you can
John,
tell me. I mean, I wouldn't... I'm not going to tell anybody.
No, I just thought I'd take the opportunity and promote his record for him. Mm-hmm. War is over if you want it. Happy Christmas.
Yeah.
And Apple Records.
Well, are you in any sense in contact with each other? I mean...
Yeah, I saw him last night, actually, at the premiere of Raga, which is what we should talk about, maybe.
Okay. But, I mean, what did you say?
I said, hi, hello.
Do you have writers who think of these things, or do you just have them ready and you can just snap them right out like that?
We have writers home, and rooms full of them.
What did he come back with right away?
With, hi.
Yeah? Gee, this ought to be... was there more, or did that just go on? That's pretty good.
You've got real boring people, you know, to talk to on your show. I'm probably the biggest bore you've ever had on the show.
Really? You think?
Yeah.
Well, I'll be the judge of that.
Oh.
Listen, I'll tell you.
Well, I don't really, you know, they asked me, do you want to come on the Dick Cavett show? And I said, yeah, I got nothing to talk about, really.
Yeah.
They said, well, think of something, you know, anything. So I thought, okay, we'll go and talk about Raga, which is...
Film. You mean that's it? When we're done talking about that, then...
Then I go.
You don't like to talk, then?
Well, not really. Sometimes, if there's something to say, but there's really nothing to say these days.
You know, I have that feeling, too. People think that I must love to talk and that I would love to go to parties and yak my head off. And I could go for months without talking.
Well, you talk every night, don't you?
I know, and I've never liked it. I mean, I don't crave conversation. I could sit in an empty room for days and days. I'd have to leave occasionally, but not to talk. I mean, in other words, I don't have a terrific appetite for talking. The reason I'm rattling on like this is that you've just frightened me by telling me that you don't like to talk. And I figure I may have... Will I have to fill then this last hour?
You just talk and I'll watch.
Okay, well, we will... Let's do talk about the film. And then... well, before we get to that, though, since we may run out...
Let's get to something else.
When you... if you and John and Yoko do meet, though, you're not really...
No.
Gritting your teeth.
No, we're good friends.
Yeah. Well, all of that about her being the problem with the group, is that slightly silly that one woman could be so much of a problem?
No, the group had problems long before Yoko came along. Mm-hmm. Many problems, folks.
Can you remember who was the first to say, you know, I bet we'll break up one day, that this won't go on, that this is sort of a dream, that we can't all stick together?
I don't really remember anything about the Beatle days. It seems like a sort of, you know, previous incarnation when I think about it.
And a long time ago, like another life.
Yeah.
Do you regret any of it?
No. Don't regret really anything, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what happened and it was good, you know, it was good, but it was also good to carry on, do something else. In fact, it was a relief.
Sometimes they say
some people can't understand that, you know, because Beatles was such a big deal. They can't understand why we should actually enjoy splitting up. But there's a time, you know, when people grow up and they leave home or whatever they do and they go for a change, you know, and it was really time for a change.
Don't you think a lot of people just envied the idea of being world celebrities, though? And being,
well, some people, you know, would go on and on forever singing the same tune and playing the same gig if they were making some money, you know. Yeah. But I think we'd all rather give that up and try going on our own and try doing something we really want to do. And if we don't make it, then hard luck. But as it happens, we've all got such a lot of like goodwill hanging over from being Beatles.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably wouldn't have me on the show if I hadn't have been one. Let's face it.
No, you wouldn't get here on looks alone.
We will return after this message.
Oh, now wait a minute.
Station.
Just because that comes on doesn't mean you have to do it right away.
Oh.
Do you feel like doing it now?
I just did it.
Oh, right.
Oh, I see. 4 or 5 minutes.
We will...
4 and 5.
He's right, folks. We will return after this message from our local station. See, when you say it... Talking with George Harrison, who wants to know if it's over yet. Do you think you might have been the most anxious of the four to get out? I get that impression from reading about it.
Maybe, yeah.
I wonder
it was
why.
well, because over the years, you know, I had such a lot of songs mounting up that I really wanted to do, but I only got my quota of 1 or 2 tunes per album. Mm-hmm. And that way I would have had to record about 100 Beatle albums just to get out the tunes I had in 1965.
Were you held down by the other fellas?
Well, very subtly, yes.
Yeah? How would they do it?
Really,
I mean,
they didn't strap me down or anything like that.
Yeah.
But, no, it was just the way things happened, you know. It started off I didn't write, they wrote, then I started to write, and it was sort of trying to push in a bit.
You don't actually read or write music, do you?
No.
Well, then when you say write...
Well, write...
If you have a tune that hits you, how do you get it down?
Just keep it in your head, you know? Just work it out on the piano or on the guitar.
But then do you tape it, or what preserves it?
Sometimes put it on tape. But usually you can remember it in your head if you don't. I mean, I write the words down and remember the tune in my head.
Yeah. Do you wish you'd studied composition and all of that? You don't need it.
Well, maybe it would help somewhere. I probably wouldn't have to pay a copyist.
Yeah. But you don't miss it. I mean, you can...
No.
It would just help. Maybe
because it's not really sort of music, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, there's a difference between people who write music and classical things and big arrangements to the sort of thing I do. It's just really very simple.
Mm-hmm. And the other guys, most of the melodies were John's or Paul's that were done done on the album.
That was funny when John was on. Every time you had a commercial break and then it came back part 20 and they keep playing Paul's songs.
Just put our guests at ease, I guess, is what we do. But they always talk about you as the real musician of the group, and if you haven't studied music, What do they mean by that? That you're more serious about it? You've seen that, though, haven't you? That they
it's probably because I didn't smile so much.
To be a real musician, you have to be sour, I suppose.
Yeah.
There was also the theory that you attracted more girls by being the quiet one, in the same sense that a guy at a party who sits in the corner will have the girl come over and say, "Oh, what's the matter?"
It's just...
this was not a calculated
dirty rumor.
Philosophy on your part. Was it?
Just a rumor, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Paul used to get them all with his, you know.
Do nerves hit you badly?
Terrible. Sometimes I sit down, like before the show, and try and figure out what it is inside that starts all this tension.
Where's it coming from?
I don't know, no idea. Otherwise I could control it.
They used to say that's a way to get rid of tension, is if you can try to sit down and think exactly where it is. Is it in your stomach, or what gives you that wave through the stomach?
It comes from everywhere all at the same time. That's the problem. You can't it's sort of abstract somehow, nerves. Well, the way nerves act upon you.
Yeah. Does any kind of meditation help before?
Yes, but I mean, that's a sort of different thing, you know, to this. I mean, you can't, you could meditate and get peaceful, but then the moment they say, the Dick Cavett Show, and then there you are again. So...
Does this happen when you're watching the show, or just when you're...
Yeah. Yes, it does. Just thinking about it, you know.
I didn't know. I've probably given you the beginnings of an ulcer.
Yes.
So, you wouldn't use meditation as a tool to calming you down as the most important thing. I think that's why some people go into it, though. They say, I've tried everything, I take tablets.
I mean, maybe I'm more calm now than I would have been a few years ago, I don't know. But it's still, there's still something about the idea of this, you know, Big Brother and all them people tuned in. Okay, what's he going to say? Yeah. Look at him. And so, you know, you don't... we have to take a station break.
A few minutes here. Let me ask you one other thing, George, because do you have any thoughts on why hard drugs and rock stars have become synonymous? I mean, you can see why if you had a life like Bessie Smith had, or Billie Holiday or something like that, what they went through. If I were them, I suppose I would take anything that was available. But I mean, most of the people in rock haven't had that dismal, grinding, horrible kind of life. That is it in any way a way of emulating those other people who were like those?
There's a lot of you know. I mean, a lot of pop people go through a hell of a lot. You know, just say in 1 year they see so much, and they go through so many different things that they either just want to get high. I mean, basically it starts with people who just want to get high, you know, like people drink. I mean, that's a big problem. People have a drink, like I suppose after the show maybe you have a drink just to get a little high. So musicians, you know, either drink a little bit or maybe they smoke a bit, and then they want to get a bit high, you know, and they're sort of really looking for something. And it's the same with all those Bessie Smiths and all those people, because the world is such a hard place to try and make it in. So, I mean, they're all just like buffers, all those drugs and things, and I suppose if they get on top of you, you know, they get next to you.
Why, the ones who've killed themselves, your colleagues, why heroin?
Well, that seems to be the big one.
Yeah.
I'm really unqualified to talk about heroin because I've never taken it. And I really don't intend to. There's, you know, I'm sure it's just, it's probably just the best high, you know, that's what it's down to. It's the one that gets them the highest, the quickest. But it just happens to kill you faster as well. I mean, they all sort of kill you in one way or another. And there's very few people who seem to be able to experience something like heroin and then get away from it. Because it just gets in the system and they become dependent on it. I don't know. It's sad, you know, it's really sad because they're all looking for some deep love or something like that, and they miss it, you know. It's much better to try and not take any drugs, you know. If you can get straight, really straight, then in a way it's much higher. I mean, I'm not really qualified to talk about that either. I mean, I'm sort of in the middle, you know.
Another one of those little messages. We'll be back right after this one. Tomorrow night, my guest will be Danny Kaye. That was Jack Benny. Could you tell that? Could you tell that I was doing Jack Benny?
No.
Oh.
I don't know.
But seriously.
Jack Benny? They've never heard of Jack Benny in England.
You're kidding. When Jack Benny goes to the... They throw themselves at Jack Benny in England. Oh, yeah. He goes to the Palladium, and people just tear the place apart.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Jack Benny.
Fancy that.
Yep. You'll learn a lot here with me.
I can't watch TV in America, to tell you the truth. It's such a load of rubbish. Not the Dick Cavett show, of course.
I wondered.
It just drives you crazy, you know, the commercials. You just get into something and it's sorry now, another word from, and another word from. And in the end, you know, they just put commercials on all the time.
But you have commercials, too, over on your side of the
Yeah,
pond.
but it's really done good, you know. It's really done good. They show maybe, if it's a 30-minute show, they'll have the commercial at the beginning, then the show will start, and after 15 minutes or so, it'll end, and they say, end of part 1, ding, and then it goes into the commercial, and then the commercials end, and it says part 2. Here it just goes, jing, 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 from one into the next. You don't know if it's a commercial or if it's the show. I mean, it does some of the things.
Let's say there are a lot of commercials. I'll give you that. I have a serious question I want to ask you, and I have a feeling we're going to get interrupted before I get to. But I meant to get into this with John and with you.
Have you ever seen Monty Python's Flying Circus?
Yes.
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 Well,
very good.
You want to get that on in America. It's really good.
I thought of trying to get some of that and showing it.
You try and get some.
There wasn't time.
It's really good.
Yeah. Can I get to my serious question?
Yeah.
You have this tremendous influence, and you had, when you were together, you had this gigantic influence on the young people, right? And everybody knows that the Beatles went through a drug phase. Did it ever occur to you, or did you ever stop and think of it this way, that the fact that this was known, and the fact that you were the Beatles, might have caused thousands of kids to go into drug problems that might not have otherwise?
Well, no. Let him ask the question. Let him ask the question. First of all, when we took the notorious wonder drug LSD, it was we didn't know we were having it. John and I had this drug, and it was given. We were having dinner with our dentist, and he put it in our coffee and never told us. And we never heard of it. I mean, it's a good job we hadn't heard of it, because there's been so much paranoia created around the drug that people now, if they take it, they're already on a bad trip before they start. Whereas for us, we didn't know anything. We were so naive, and so we had it, and we went out to a club, and it was incredible. It was really incredible. So a couple of years later, Paul had the drug too. And the TV people in England came and they said, so you've had this wonder drug LSD. And he was saying, oh, look, it's, you know, the question you asked me about the responsibility for everybody else. Paul said to the TV people, look, I'm not saying if I had the drug, it's you. If you're going to ask me if I've had it, I'm going to say yes because I've had it. I'm not going to lie. So he said, they said, well, have you had LSD? And before they asked, he said, it's your responsibility, because if you're going to ask me and I'm going to say yes, and you're going to put it on the TV saying, yes, we've had LSD. So really, it was their fault. So they asked the question, Paul said yes, and then they put it on and said, oh, they've had LSD, and then the world goes crazy.
Yeah. I just wondered if if you have to stop and think about it. You use the word responsibility, which is it always sounds so hokey when your school teacher says you have a tremendous responsibility. You know? But did you ever take that kind of thing seriously and think, we got to watch ourselves, because if we do this, other people will do that?
Yeah, we always had to watch ourselves.
Yeah.
Because if we weren't watching ourselves, there was somebody else out there who was.
Yeah.
And there was always reporters who would follow us around on tour and always try breaking into our room, catching us doing something. Yeah. Something maybe that we shouldn't have been doing. And the whole thing is that people want other people to do nasty things because they feed off it. And then they write, they're doing nasty things. It's like in a newspaper in England. I met David Frost the other day. Can I say David Frost, or do you bleep it out?
Once.
Okay. I bumped into him in the hotel, and he said, here, to really bring you down, is a copy of the News of the World. He'd just come from England. He bought this paper, and there's a big story on the front saying...
That's the scandal sheet in England.
Yeah. But it's a big story saying about this group called the Marmalade, how they had orgies with the teenage fans and all this sort of thing. But the whole idea of these reporters going out for months and months, scraping around, you know, lifting up the pavement, trying to see what rubbish there is to write about. And then they write about it as if they're saints and as if everybody isn't doing it.
Yeah.
So I don't know where the responsibility... I mean, maybe you just should stay at home and never say anything. That's definitely the easiest.
Or why do people do things just because famous people do them is another question I've never been able to figure out exactly. Indian music and drugs don't mix, as I understand it.
No, there's been a big...
Ravi Shankar said so.
Yeah. There was a problem. You know, the Indian music really got popular during that 66, 67, you know, all the psychedelic period. And I think from that, most people have started to associate it with drugs because the hippies... Apart from the classical people who used to go and watch the music anyway, like the hippie people at that time were the ones who caught on to Indian music, and it just happens that most of them were, you know, like smoking pot or something. And since then, you know, I don't know, maybe Ravi will be able to explain how the two got caught up together, but it's really a problem. It's a problem for Ravi because he's, you know, trying to do this, spent years and years of real disciplined life in order to play this music, and then people think, oh, you know, he must have taken dope to play that good, you know. And it's really, it's a terrible thing, you know, when somebody's, it's completely the opposite. The audience are really misunderstanding what the whole thing's about.
Maybe we can get him to talk about that.
Yeah.
If we don't go now, we won't have time. We have a message from our local stations, and we'll have time. Because I didn't get to go to that concert, the Bangladesh concert, but I heard all about it. They're really ahead of us, aren't they? It's supposed to be one of the best things ever done of this kind, and one of the most successful charity things of this kind that anybody ever put together. And did you get the idea just sitting alone one day, or how did it come to you?
It came, really, it was Ravi Shankar's idea. He wanted to do something like this, and he was talking to me and telling me about his concern for the thing and asking me if I had any suggestions. Then, after half an hour, he talked me into being on the show. And so, once I decided I was going to go onto the show, then that was it, you know. I just had to try and get a band together and set up. I organised the things with a little help from my friends for Madison Square Garden. And that's it. It just snowballed, and the whole thing was thought of and planned and executed all within about 4 weeks.
Yeah. And it raised an enormous amount of money. And now, the thing that always bothered me was, how do you know that the victims of the problems in India and in Pakistan will get the money that you raise at a thing like that? Where does it go? Once it goes into the Madison Square Garden box office, then how does it get to the people that you see starving?
Well, there was, because this concert was done with such short time for preparation, also because so many of these concerts were rip-offs, we wanted to ensure that we could do the concert and nobody would think that we were keeping the money ourselves. So there was such a short time. There was only like 3 weeks by the time we'd more or less decided the concert was going on, and then we had the date set for Madison Square Garden, which was like the only available day that we had. So we decided the best thing would be to give the money and say out front that this money is going to such and such a charity, and then we checked different things out. We're going to give it to the Red Cross. This was the first idea. We give the money to the American Red Cross, who in turn could give it to the Indian Red Cross, but then we heard so many different stories about the Red Cross and how there's, you know, hurricanes hit some place in America and they just take care of the whites and all the blacks are there and they're not taking care of them. So you hear so many different stories about things.
I hadn't heard that.
Well, we heard so many stories about all different organizations. In the end, we had to really say what we were going to give the money to. So we said we'll give the money to UNICEF, and they have to say to us exactly what they need, and they can come to us and say we need this and this and this, and then we'll sign the check and let them buy the things they need. So the concert made $250,000, which actually is really very small in terms of the amount of money we're going to make from the record.
The record and probably the film.
But the record, for the record, I'm hoping when we've realized some of the money, which should be around January, if the record comes out at all this year. That's another problem. We're having a slight problem with a record company. But if the record does come out early December, by mid-January we should have realized quite a lot of money, a few $1 million. At that time, Ravi was going to be in India, so I was going to go out there, get the money into India, and then I'll take it there myself, because I don't want the money to get lost. It's taken, 3 or 4 months' work to do it. I don't want the money to end up in somebody's pocket.
I guess you better... I know this is the concert that people saw pictures of in the magazines. Bob Dylan showed up as a surprise, at least to the audience, and all. Well, let's just take...
It's a surprise to me, too.
Was it really a surprise?
Yes.
Yeah. Will you do that kind of thing again, do you think? It seems like a very good idea.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Maybe. I thought that, you see, it's difficult for... Not all musicians are rich enough through record sales or such like to be able to donate their services all the time. So I figured a good way to do it would be maybe 2 concerts in each town, like similar to Madison Square. The first show, we keep the money, and the second show, we give the money to the charity. That way we can feed the starving musicians, and the second, we can feed the people.
Yeah.
I think that sounds
fair. They criticize rock groups for being over-commercialized on the one hand, and yet the members of them are supposedly socially conscious on the other hand. So it seems like this is a wonderful way of combining those two things. If you can draw a lot of money, ridiculous sums by the average person's reckoning, then why not do it this way? There must be loopholes. There must be other problems. Are there? Is the government suspicious of anything that is passed off?
I don't think so.
Because you say there have been rip-off concerts.
Yeah. I think if you take sort of precautions, which is really when we said we'd give the money to UNICEF for the concert, that was really a precaution, because too many things could have gone wrong. And it would have been terrible to have done the concert and for it to turn out really bad. So many concerts turn out bad, like I think the Stones did, and people getting killed, and it's really bad. So it's very important, I think, for something to come out really good, that feels good, and the people that actually does something.
Yeah. George said that he had so the Red Cross shouldn't get too upset. He had said that he had heard bad things about all organizations and good things, and it just became very hard to know which is which, and that's one of the things that makes it hard to do this. So the Red Cross should not feel particularly singled out. Right?
Right.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's just what I heard, I've heard things about everybody, about I've heard a lot about you.
Oh, no. Well, it's only a 90-minute show. We won't have time to go into that. What have you heard?
Whatever you try to do, somebody would say, don't give it to the Red Cross, give it to them. So you say, okay, we'll give it to them, and then somebody writes saying, don't give it to them, they're terrible. Every move you make, in the end, I just think, well, maybe we shouldn't do anything. Really, that's the easiest thing would just to be to sit at home and not try and do anything for anybody.
Yeah.
It's funny because that's the situation. You can create some money, then you got the problem of who to give it to. If you can give it to somebody, then you have to worry about if they're going to get it. And like it's the same with the record. All these musicians came. Some of them flew thousands of miles, didn't get paid for anything. They came and did the show, all out of the kindness of their hearts. Then I spent a month with Phil Spector, produced the record, in a studio till like 7 in the morning, making this record, getting the package together, and we get that ready, and we give it to the record company, and they say, now, how much are we going to make? So, no, you don't make anything, we make it. It's for the refugees, and they say, well, they don't want to do it for cost. We want them to do it for what it costs to manufacture. Actually, we've paid the cost so far. our company's paid for all the boxes, millions of boxes and things, you know, books that go with it. Then we give it to them on a plate and they want more money. And it's really not on, you know. It's really unfair. But
what about Apple? Couldn't they
well, Apple, that's our company. We've paid, so far, all the costs to make the record, to make the box, make the package, all the expense involved in the show. And then Capitol, who's Apple has a contract with to distribute. They just have this distribution deal. So we're giving it to them saying, aren't you lucky, you know, you're the company who's going to distribute this wonderful record. And they say, no, we want this money, that's not enough, we want that. And because they've lost so much bread, you know, they just really lost, and they kicked all the staff out, fired everybody, brought in a new guy who was working in England. He was really from India, good old Bhaskar Menon. And Bhaskar happens to be from India, and I thought really at first he was really into the whole idea of it. But, you know, it's just been held up. This record should have been out a month ago, really. But now, we still haven't solved the problem.
It will come out.
But we got Dylan, you know, Dylan is CBS, and, you know, they're cool about it. And we've got Shelter and Elektra, and all different record companies have all, you know, said, okay, right, you know, put it out. And the problem is with our distributor.
You'll get it out then.
We'll get it out. Yeah. I mean, I'll just put it out, you know, put it out with CBS and let, you know, Bhaskar have to sue me. Bhaskar Menon. Oh, get you. We're going to play the sue me, sue you
That's right,
blues.
Bhaskar, sue him.
Sue me, Bhaskar.
Let me ask you, this tremendous... George, television in America isn't as mature as it is in England.
No, it's very good in England.
Oh, another one of those little messages. We'll be back right after this one. This is Ravi Shankar. This is George Harrison. Before you came out, George was saying, I don't know if you could hear it back there because you were sitting in place, that people often think that there must be an intimate connection between Indian music and drugs, maybe because of the bizarre sound, and that to play that way, or to appreciate it at least, there should be a drug connection. He said that that's not
I'm sure you call him bizarre, Dick.
Yes, I object to that word bizarre.
Oh, not, I meant B-A-Z-A-A-R, the other, no, wait a minute, there's no way I can get out of this. To Western ears, the unusual sound might suggest some sort of chemical intoxication.
No, I don't think it doesn't suggest anything. It has been somehow established from the very beginning, and I'm not blaming George, but, you know, somehow because of him, the sitar became really popular among the young people and among many rock groups. And it was because of the association of those rock groups, you see. The kids took it for granted from the very beginning that, you know, it's something like rock music.
Yeah.
See? And then there happened to be people like Timothy Leary and Allen Ginsberg, you know, who somehow also established that Indian music is associated with drugs and things like that. So it all connected, and that's how it came. That's why you see some of these films, when they show any scene with an orgy or some, you know,
pot party,
you hear this bizarre sound of sitar, which is bizarre because...
To the Western ear.
Yeah.
How do we get George to perform again someday?
How do you mean?
He will.
What?
Well, I mean...
No, he's not going to do anything. Perform
You'll
what?
be appearing in public. Perform the acted music.
Oh, well, that's easy, you know.
Yeah. When you get everything arranged, would you ever consider...
If I ever get a minute free, I may just do that. I'm too busy working.
Yeah. Really? What's keeping you too busy?
All this editing films and...
Everybody ends up editing film. Whatever else they started out as, they all end up editing film.
Yes.
Have you noticed that? We have a message. We'll be back. Come here. I know that neither of you likes to hustle things, so I'll just point out that the Bangladesh concert is on record, and so is your concerto, and the record with Andre Previn, and Raga is also on. There is a soundtrack album. This time has really flown. Oh.
Hold on, let's see.
Yeah, can you get a good shot of those?
Good shot, Roger. Don't
Wait,
forget, at your record stores
After
now.
what you said about the Lennons, well,
I learn a lot of things from the Lennons.
I think... I wish we had more time. Good night.